The following is just an overview of a project, the Eagleford project, top accounts, drilling and midstream. So the concept is to, if we take a look at the project objective, what we wanted to do is we want to look at kind of upstream account criteria, top 10 active counties, top 10 operators by rig activity, top 10 producing operators. So, those are the objectives that we have. And then we also want to look at the midstream side of things. Where is the midstream activity by county? What does it look like from a new construction perspective? And what does it look like from a total, activity in the midstream market? And so I'll just walk you through the process, our project methodology. So we have really two data sources that we want to focus on, or we focused on for this particular project. We look at well permits. Well permits essentially have kind of three stages. One is that the permit is taken out and nothing's happened; it hasn't been drilled. The second is the permit has been drilled, so there's a spud date associated with it, and then typically there can be drilling rig information, those types of things associated with it. And the last is the completion component of it, when the well is actually fully completed. The other is air permits, and again, this is data specific to Texas, but it is a process used from a national perspective. And an air permit, again, has statuses. It can be for new projects, it can be for existing projects, it can be maintenance related, it can be transfer of ownership. So there's lots of different nuances to the air permits on that side of it. What we also want to do is we want to focus on leveraging AI. We want the whole project to be kind of repeatable and scalable, and leverage what's going on in the AI from an efficiency perspective. Things that we look at is assessment. We want to use AI to analyze the data, identify patterns, generate predictions or insights. We want to some creation. So after analyzing, we want the AI to create new content, new ideas, new solutions for us to focus on. And then we want it to communicate with us. We want it to be able to give us information that we can make actionable. We also use maps. Maps are a great visual, a lot more accessible than they ever have been before. And then our objective is to make it outcome repeatable and scalable. So that's why, the data's there. We want to be able to use AI over and over and over again at any given time to be able to update, the information that we focused on. So if we look at assessment, we kind of looked at what our objective was. Relatively easy to top 10 operators by rig. In the Eagleford, again, we're looking specifically in the Eagleford, and this is over a 30-day period. So ConocoPhillips, EOG, BPX. So, here's kind of our top 10 companies that are out there actively drilling at this particular time in this particular market. So, we can load up the rig data, we can load up the well permit data and ask, show us the top 10 by record count. And then ultimately, it comes back after assessing the information with the data that we're looking at. We also look at it from a new air permit perspective. Again, there's lots of air permits out there. This is specifically ones that are related to new projects. Same idea. We load it up. We know the status and project type of the air permits, and we can say, we want air permits with this type of project type in the Eagleford. What does that look like for us? So Conoco, SM, Devon, Grit, Baytex, all companies that that are interesting for us to focus our sales efforts on, or focus our assessment efforts on. And then the same thing, top 10 counties. So same idea. In this particular case, we look at it and we say, okay, show me the top 10 counties by well permit, and then we can do the same thing with ultimately with the facility permits as well. Looks like I've just got to update a few files there, a bit of information, but that's fine. So that's things that we can do. Is taking a look at this, and so this is what that data would look like. So we assessed it. We've got these counties. We've got these accounts. Now, when we look at it, we could take the assessment a step further. And then ultimately, this kind of comes down from a creation perspective. So I like to take a bit of a hybrid model and say, okay, now let's look at the county information and let's look at the account information and assess these top 10 counties. who are the top accounts in those particular counties, and what does that look like. My personal preference is I like to kind of segment the counties or group the counties. I call this the North, and we look at Carnez is number one, DeWitt is number 6 off of our list, top 10 list. Atacasa is number 7, Gonzales number 8, Live Oak. So these quite a few of our other our counties are here. Sorry, in the northern part of the Eagleford, and then ultimately there are some other counties in there that didn't make our top 10 list. And then we can go through and we can go in and start to do our assessment on this side of it. So one, we look at production, and again, this isn't production by operator. This is production at a higher level. These are the major contributors to the production in that area. So we're looking at 7.3 million barrels of oil, 24 million cubic feet of gas in this particular area. And we look at it and we say, okay, based on total amount of air permits and based on wells drilled, 2024, 2025, who lists the top 5 for us? And then it lists Conoco number 1, 155 wells drilled, 25 air permits, a total of 179. So it's like, and then gives us some input highlighting unmatched operational scale and ongoing investment. So these guys are the definitely the anchor tenant in that area. Number 2, considerably less, 45 wells drilled and 4 permits. So we go through that particular list. The other thing that I look at it from a midstream perspective, what some of the major processing plants. When we look at this midstream for this, for the operators, a lot of it are multi-well batteries. And the multi-well batteries, can have quite a bit of separation, equipment involved with it, compressors, those types of things. But then we look at the large infrastructure, midstream infrastructure. I also took a look at it and said, what are the plants in this particular county? We go through that process on every one of these. And one of the things when we talk about the mapping side of it, if I click on this, then we can come into the map, and then the map allows us to start to get a little bit of visualization associated with it. So I'll take this off and this off for now, and it's layers. So there's where Conoco is, there's where Devon is, EOG. So it just gives us that geographic reference that we're looking for. The air permits themselves, it does not show the ultimately it just kind of gives the totals. It doesn't show the exact location of the facility. It just gives the nearest town. So it just gives you an idea of where the majority of the infrastructure is going in from on that side of it. And then we can also I think I have it in here. Here's our plants. And then ultimately we can zoom in on this particular plant if we want to come in and take a look at this and the map. And the map is a great tool for that type of activity. So we could say, well, what does a active gas plant in this particular area actually look like? So there's the Kennedy gas plant. Takes a second for it to render. We'll just let it go here. And there we go. So a lot of the infrastructure, the midstream at the well site, the pad, is owned by the operators. Coming back here, and then we're going to have a leg off of this to a major pipeline that's going to take this infrastructure down to the Gulf Coast on that side of it. So we've got our 3 layers from a mapping perspective, and then we leverage that just to help us with the visuals that are associated here on the slides. So we go through each one of the top areas. So there's DeWitt, Conoco, BPX, Devon, Repsol. Then we go down the rankings here, and then we start to see smaller operators like Texas America Resources, Pillar, New Gulf. So the high value properties, Conoco, Devon, EOG, and then we start to see Crescent that's having a lot of success in that area, and then some other plants. And now when we move a little further away, EOG still being involved, Conoco still being involved, just because of their huge land positions. But now New Gulf, Pillar, Texas are associated with it here. And then same idea, we now see Baytex, Millennium Exploration. So we're seeing the huge land position in the north area by EOG and Conoco, but we're also seeing smaller operators. And then our first midstream company coming in, no well permits, but 5 air permits ranking on our list. And then again, Crescent, Verdun, so we start to see smaller operators on that side of it. Then we look at the central area, so really using the same process, LaSalle, DeMitt, McCullen, those are our primary areas in the central. And then really the same idea. You're seeing some of the larger operators having the best position in the highest producing area. And then we start to see newer and different smaller operators coming into areas where in that county, in those fields, the production isn't quite as great as it would be in the primary counties on that side of it. And the last, really dominated by Webb, the high gas side of things. And then ultimately SM kind of being the 10,000 pound gorilla there. And then, but other players in the area. And again, we start to see a midstream company coming in. And then the gas plant, seeing really the Schilling gas plant being quite a large gas plant, processing a lot of gas. And then we see some Amon plants, those types of things starting to come from other areas. So that is our assessment by county and then by operator. And then we can take those assessments and then we say, okay, well, ultimately, this is the content generation. What are the top 5 accounts? And again, our goal was top 10 accounts. So who are our top 5? And then who would be the recommendation of the next 5 on that side of it? So we run that through the AI side of it. ConocoPhillips, not really a surprise, but ultimately why wells drilled in multiple areas. So that's a scoring mechanism to say that's why they're number 1. Lots of air permits, the highest of all operators. Number 1 in 2 different counties, showing strong showing in Live Oak. And then consistently active in all 6 counties. So this is ultimately, so why ConocoPhillips shows unmatched scale, geographic coverage, balanced development. So, number 1 in the area. EOG, again, not a surprise, similar type of activity. And then ultimately why, although light on permits, EOG is the most aggressive driller in the Eagle Ford. Again, EOG has some different partnerships from an infrastructure that we would drill down into a little bit further to to firm up our case study from an EOG perspective. Devon is strategically building a permit pipeline, positioning for aggressive expansion and future field development. So, it's leaning into this is going to be a hot area for them. And SM down in our Webb area, they're a dominant producer in that area. So intense activity, both from a facility as well as a drilling perspective. And then here I don't have 5, but I've got my 3 notable mentions: BPX, Baytex, Grid Oil. So ultimately we do get to 10. We can get to 10. I've got it to 8 on this side of it. And then the conclusion. So to determine top performing accounts in the Eagle Ford, we conducted a comprehensive review of rig activity, well drilled, facility developments, and geographic footprint, from 2024-25 in the most active counties. And then ultimately there's our list. So that's where we look at it from an AI perspective. And again, now we've got the model from a prompt perspective. We can say, hey, this is our prompts. And then we can run this model over and over again, with just loading up the data into the generative AI tools and then putting a few command prompts in there. And ultimately, it'll give us the same document over and over again. We can look at it from a quarterly review and then see where the changes are associated with it. So that is an example of how we can use AI to help us kind of focus. In this case, we're looking at the top tier of the market.